Welcome to the GCW podcast, a live podcast covering all things related to the Galactic Civil War LARP event, a sci fi event set in a galaxy far, far away. I'm your host, Husky, and tonight we'll be discussing the next GCW event, Battlefront Mauston, as well as the skirmish system that we use for this event. This event will be taking place October 11th and 12th at Action Sports, Wisconsin. Joining us this evening, we have the man behind the curtain himself, Chris, aka 6mm Mandalorian. Say hello, Chris.
How you guys doing?
Right on. And as well, we are joined by the mind behind the skirmish system, which is the heart of GCW's Battlefront events. Good to meet you, Brandon.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys.
Right on. Do you want to have a say in what topics we cover or what guests we have? Do you want to join the Discord audience to listen in on our pre and post show banter? Do you want to have the opportunity to be a part of the conversation and have your voice be heard? Then please head on over to the Galactic Civil War Patreon page where you can get all those perks and more. Without further delay, let's meet our guest. Chris, Brandon, so great to have you guys here. Very excited to be talking about this topic and the Battlefront events. I'm a big fan of them. So why don't you guys just tell me about yourselves, who you are, and what you do? Chris?
I am Chris. Some people know me as the 6mm Mandalorian. I'm one of the lead admins of the Galactic Civil War, event system here that we've been putting on for the last 4 or 5 years going. And I've been an avid airsofter for over 20 years. And I've kind of melded into the persona of a Mandalorian airsofter. Ever since I started doing that, I flipped over to how can I get as many people having as much fun as I'm having right now? That's where Galactic Civil War came from. So,
Awesome. So, Chris, you run a lot of things going on at the events. I think every time we're actually at one, I see you sitting at a desk more than actually participating. So, what are some of the things you actually do?
yeah, so there's the entire process of collecting ticket information, collecting money for tickets, working with fields one on one to basically get all of our needs filled on the events. Then it comes to actually operating the skirmish system, issuing players their chain code cards, getting them registered, helping out Rain Cloud in various aspects, but then also doing things like the Imperial Super Commandos, where we are basically a group of bad guys that go around at the LARP events and get shot.
Right.
We will transition over to Pike players or Belvosi from time to time as well. So we're basically the faceless people that you can feel good murdering, and they're not going to feel bad about being shot.
Awesome. That's incredibly useful. And Brandon, can you please tell us about yourselves? I think to many people, you're a very new face to the podcast in GCW, but they might not realize just how integral you have been into the events running.
Sure. Yeah, let me just first say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Right. Yeah.
I think 6mm Mandalorian is relatively new father, maybe a couple of years old now, right, for your daughter?
Yeah, she's a year and a half, so this is my second run at a Father's Day.
hmm Yeah, well, Happy Father's Day.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm the founder and CEO of Skirmish. There is one other man behind the curtains, but all of you might not know, but I'm a veteran as well as the other co-founder's a veteran. He's actually still active duty, so I'm kind of holding down the fort while he's finishing his active duty service time. But yeah, I've in terms of airsoft, I've played for about 10 years or so now, but I've before that I was a heavy into paintball, but I've always really enjoyed uh, the LARP or the more objective based
Mm-hmm.
type of paintball play, and so that naturally flowed into airsoft and the last half of my, we'll say, kinetic um, uh, sort of pastime. Um, but I've been really happy to have Galactic Civil War, adopt skirmish. What a lot of the things that we've done, the boundaries that we've pushed over the last 6 months, year or more, have been really because of what Chris has sort of idealized and kind of pitched, and we've been able to make happen in many ways. So it's been a lot of fun, integrating with the Galactic Civil War and seeing how you guys have grown what you're doing, and really helped me kind of enhance what Skirmish can offer as well. So thanks, and thanks for having me on the podcast, guys.
Right. Thank you. I think it comes from all of us when I say that, we really appreciate the skirmish system and what it has done for the events. Uh, I think we first used it at the second ever event, being Battlefront Bolivar. And so as we're heading
Mhm.
into what I believe is our seventh or eighth event, Battlefront Mauston, I know we've got a lot of new things we're looking to do with it, and you've introduced a lot of new ways to interact with it. So I'm really excited to discuss that on the podcast. I just was wondering if you could tell a bit about. I know you mentioned that you always enjoyed objective play and the LARP side, so I was wondering if you could talk about the development process, what inspired the creation, and what that development road looked like for you.
Yeah, the I would be lying if I took entire credit for the idea. I think
Hmm.
the idea really came from my partner,
Right.
and but I had, between the two of us, we kind of brought it into made it a reality. And at the end of the day, it simply was that we wanted to know what happened at the end of an event, and we wanted to enable event hosts to do more with less. Is I guess the bottom line. Um, and I think it's an objective truth that, you couldn't put on a Galactic Civil War style event the way that Chris is running them without a system like Skirmish. So I'm glad that we're able to enable, Chris to do what he's able to do in Galactic Civil War, and others out there that are running similar type events with the system. And that's the bottom line. It was, how do we enable fields to give players this kind of experience on a regular basis without the overhead that would come with doing it otherwise, right? Like
Hmm.
you would, if you wanted to replicate this type of gameplay or data extraction from what's going on the field, you would just need so many people out there doing um, data collection, or radioing it in, or whatever manual process that might look like. So it was really, that's what it's all about for me, is just getting that real-time feedback to players so that you can enable these types of immersive experiences and take that with you on the, with moving forward for, whether it be personal stats, or real-time detonation of targets, and that real-time interactive gameplay that really kind of tries to help bridge that gap between what we can imagine and what we can really do in real life. So actually, the first before we decided Skirmish as the name for the system, it was, we were going to tag it IRL, for in real life, and that was going to be sort of an umbrella for a host of ideas that we had that were going to flow out of that. And so what we wanted to do was take these in real life scenarios and bridge that digital divide that we all kind of expect in 2025.
Right. Thank you. Very well said. You know, and I think it's really insane what you've done because I can remember playing airsoft back in like the early 2010s and even some of the late 2000s, and just thinking that, how amazing it would be if you could have that feedback, that play by play, where you can watch back an event, see what happened, see what players really were the most impactful. So now there's been a lot of times where I often ask myself, like, was my squad actually impacting the outcome of this game at all? And that's been the really awesome part about Skirmish, is I can look and see, yeah, yeah, we were. At our past event, Echoes Resolve, it was really cool after everything was said and done to look at that and see who was doing what, because we would have missions where we would send players out and say, go capture these areas, go flip these skirmish points back to our team, and we could take a look and see, okay,
Mhm.
who's actually accomplishing that. So I think that's really an awesome feature. So Chris,
Yeah,
let's
and it's oh,
no, you go ahead, go
yes,
ahead.
and yeah, and to be clear, it's not necessarily all about who's winning and losing,
Right,
but it's
yeah.
about giving you that purpose in the
Mm.
middle of the game, whether it be an objective, tasks type, accomplishing various tasks, or detonating targets, recovering loot, just various things that help pull you away from that, that battle line that often is drawn in some of these force on force type engagements where, um, you really give people a better experience when you give them things to do besides just shoot the other team. And
Oh
Chris
yeah.
is definitely a master of that with how he's built the Galactic Civil War.
Oh, for sure. I know we have players that will feel like they are contributing in a incredibly meaningful way and not really have ever shot anybody. And that's a really
Mhm.
interesting thing about it. So I think that's very true. I know Skirmish is really great about. I think anyone that's played at any major airsoft event more than once will have some feelings about certain airsofters not contributing to the objective, about people that really, aren't playing that objective. So I think Skirmish is really great about kind of just giving that encouragement because it's more tactile feedback. You actually feel like you're accomplishing something as opposed to, hey, go sit in that room and defend it. Now you have this
Mhm.
actual, and something I personally love is the live map. That is a feature
Mhm.
I love. I intentionally got a data pad, 3D printed data pad phone case for my phone so I could have my phone on me at the Galactic Civil War events to keep that live map on hand. And it's
Excellent.
an incredibly useful tool because not only do you get to see what's happening, but you can see when the enemy team is attacking an objective, which, if you've
Mhm.
played the Star Wars Battlefront video games, you would see, how much that relates because when you get an enemy attacking a command post, there's an announcement. Well, now it's almost the same thing. And I wonder if you could it would be possible to introduce a feature where you can send notifications to your phone if a command post there was some kind of way to integrate that to send notifications if a enemy is capturing a command point or a skirmish point.
Yeah, I mean that's certainly possible. We don't have an app developed, which would
Right.
be the real key to sending like a push notification.
Mhm.
Um, but certain things like that are possible. And I've been toying with some interesting versions of that. So I get this question in various forms, but it's all kind of about the same topic, which is how do you both inform those who you might want to be informed, like let's say COs and things like that, but at the same time, um, reduce the amount of information that's available to, let's say, the average participant, which is another way of saying that is you don't want to enable lone actors, so you
Mhm.
want to ensure that a lot of events really want to enforce that command structure and ensure that decisions are being made in the appropriate levels and filtered down, and so they want to hide information from certain participants and only give it to others. It'd be the same to say like you want to hide your objective information from the other team's information and so forth and back and forth. So it's an interesting um, topic that really has it really has it kind of
Mhm.
spiders out into all sorts of different kind of avenues of how you might handle that. Um, I would say the unfortunate thing is that when I first skirmish, it was on the premise that we wanted everything to be viewable live and free and with very, very little roadblocks into loading up the game. We wanted it to be very easy to get into there. So no logins required, et cetera, to see and participate in the game. And once you get into that restriction of who can see what, you necessarily have to start blocking via login and things like that for those live scenarios, um, which is a bit of a diversion from
Mhm.
the initial sort of tenets of how we established first built the website and how the data flows through. But it is possible, and I get that question often enough to where it is something that I'm actively working so that I can support those types of things where others want it. It might be it's probably not obvious to you if you haven't run games. Chris may have seen it, but there's a check box now that you can enable on some of the devices when you're setting up the game, and it says something to the effect of like hide information on the, or like restrict information on this box, and it will restrict, certain attributes of that device, to help you just kind of enhance that feature. And then what will end up happening later is, if you could use, let's say, one of the prop enhancements to interact with one of those points and then make that available. So you'll sort of have this intel gathering ability, or or saboteur type ability, which is maybe Chris's more favored. So, but anyway, yeah, that's an interesting topic that I could honestly talk about for hours, but I'll
Right.
spare you all.
Well, we just did get a very interesting question in the YouTube chat that I wanted to run by you. Were there
Okay.
any unexpected issues with Skirmish that Galactic Civil War made clear and y'all were able to either be currently working on or fix entirely?
I would say that Galactic Civil War didn't point out flaws, but
Mhm.
for sure, Galactic Civil War has, put a spotlight on, hey, these are some things that would really enable or enhance how we participate, or how the game might be used, or the introduction of prop tags, or some of the different features that exist on the boxes we've added specifically in support of Galactic Civil War. In fact, I would say just the opposite. Galactic Civil War has proven and really validated a lot of, some of the things that we built into the system, more than they've highlighted flaws. I'd say in particular at that Bolivar event, up until that event, Skirmish was largely, indoors at various indoor facilities. There's actually one near there in Missouri, and initially, we designed it though for these outdoor events. So this was the design case, these large, sprawling outdoor, hundreds of acres types of areas. And so Chris was the first one to really employ it in that way. And so up until then, even though it was designed for these outdoor, uh, very sparse kind of connectivity scenarios, it was always indoors, and that was a very easy, from a connection standpoint, from boxes communicating to other boxes, was really not a challenge. So when we had that opportunity to roll it out at Bolivar, and just seeing it connect over hundreds of meters, really pretty seamlessly, that was very validating for us, to knowing that we've put something together that really worked well. It might, from a technology standpoint, I would say one of the more challenging, and sort of proud things about the system is its ability to communicate over a very, very large distance,
Oh yeah.
and communicate a relatively large amount of data, on this mesh system. I think actually, if I'm right, Chris, the guys at, Action Sports Wisconsin are getting something in the neighborhood of 500 meters between boxes, which is really further than I kind of expected, to be honest. That for us is a huge, technological kind of, um, uh, just something that we're proud of. So, and I know that most people that play probably won't appreciate that, but we're, over radio, pushing all sorts of data back, to this central hub, and then getting it on the internet relatively seamlessly. And in events like Galactic Civil War, there'll be thousands of, events that are tracked, one at a time. So
Mhm.
anyway, hopefully that answers the question for, Gabby here on YouTube. But yeah, I maybe Chris has something else he might
Yeah.
point out. But I don't. I would say that we haven't. There's certainly nothing that we failed on that I feel like Lexus Wars pointed out, but certainly, offered insight into what we could do better, or how we could improve, or better support,
I think
these
that's
types of
yeah,
games.
I think it's the best possible outcome is not finding failures, but
Mhm.
rather reinforcing what's there. Chris, do you have any input on how we've kind of used this skirmish system and the any road bumps that might have popped up that we've prevailed over?
Yeah, basically, the biggest hurdle that I've come across is our own planning. So there are so many things that we can do within the skirmish system, and there's so many ways we can utilize it that the only downfall we've had so far is not pushing the system as far and as hard as we've needed to.
Right.
And that's something we continue to do each event. And to that point, going to Battlefront is going to be the first time we've used the system
Yeah.
in this way. And we'll talk about that in a little bit
We sure
of
will.
how we're evolving, how we use the system. So I know Brandon is going to be excited about this, but it showcases how event planners can utilize the system to do so much legwork that will help the players experience a better game.
Very true. Very true. And I do want to pivot into our next Battlefront event. Um, start really getting into that teaser aspect this episode. And I think the first thing we should jump right into is the new dynamic system we're using for this event, via the skirmish system. I know, Chris, you have this whole document made, or it's like an Excel sheet, is it? It's crazy. And the first time I
Yep.
saw it, I went, whoa, what am I looking at? So it's really cool, really exciting, and I want you just to tell us all about it. Everything you are willing to say about this dynamic skirmish system we're using.
Yeah, so the idea behind what we're calling the dynamic battlefront is the first rollout where the outcome of a round depends on what we will be doing next and how we utilize the system next. So we have an iteration of nearly 32 different scenarios that can roll out based off of how one team has completed their mission from the previous round.
Mm-hmm.
So if the rebels are stomping, they're going to have continual missions that will ramp up in difficulty for them to complete. And it will change the round based off of the outcome, which is so cool. When you think of how you've been playing games forever, it's always here's what's going to happen, here's what's going to play out no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
In the place, it's usually the event operators who are like, hey, we're going to run this scenario next. We're going to run this scenario next. So what we've gone ahead and done is make, like I said, 32 different scenarios that can play out based off of how your team has done the last round. So beginning traditional conquest style is, you know, nearly 30 objective points on the map that players are going to be fighting for. And this is probably the most familiar version from Star Wars Battlefront. You know, just the conquest style, go take that post, hold it. But then it will flip into things such as fallback modes where a team will have to continue to push objectives to move on to the next set of objectives across the map, allowing the defending team to fall back, and that's where the name of the round comes from.
Mm-hmm.
Then falling into things like sabotage, where one team has to go and destroy certain points around the map in order to be successful for that round. And it can kind of ping pong back and forth if your teams are fairly balanced. But one thing that we've probably all been on is a losing side once or not, where your team just keeps getting steamrolled, and you don't want to keep going into that scenario where your team keeps getting steamrolled.
Mm-hmm.
So we've designed this dynamic play where it gets harder and harder if one team keeps winning for that team to keep winning. Putting things in play like different respawn points for that defending team to basically repel the attackers and not have to go on the offensive.
Right. Now, I do need to apologize. There's two very basic housekeeping things we did not do. And that was first explain to anyone that might be new how the skirmish system works from a player standpoint. And the second is what is a Battlefront event and how does it differ from our regular events? So, on the topic of that first question, I think, Brandon, you're probably the best guy to answer that. What is the actual player's experience with skirmish? What does that look like?
Yeah, the player experience from skirmish should be relatively simple.
Mm-hmm.
For the Battlefront series, Chris has incorporated our chip into
Yep.
the chain code card. So your chain code card is also your ticket to using the skirmish system. And so as long as a player, you've registered that chain code card specifically the skirmish chip that will be within that, to a profile on the skirmish system. Anything that you do with however you interact with the skirmish system will be logged on your account, and you'll be able to see all of those accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
And for us, it's just I've tried to make it as simple as possible. It's just a simple tap. It's a card reader, just like if you were gonna, like, say, walk into a hotel room or pay at the counter, where you just kind of tap to pay. Same concept, where you just tap to interact. And um, the the boxes will be in various modes, either an objective mode. There's kind of a few simple modes that you can have. One is the objective mode, where if you'll go and interact, so you'll tap that reader with your chain code card, and it will either turn into the color of your team. So whatever you might be, whether it be like a Mandalorian or an Empire or a Rebel team, it will turn the color of that team, and that's how you know that you own that objective location. If it's another team's color, because you guys have multiple teams that do this, then what you'll initially see when you interact with it is a flashing, and that lets you know that you're now taking over that point. Because we don't just simply do I had it, you got it type style of objective control, but there's a whole stabilization period involved as well. And Mando's done a great job of incorporating various kind of scoundrel actions in the
Yeah. Yep.
background to this, where that stabilization period can be increased or decreased depending on um, a setting that essentially lives in that box. But he's given the power of that setting to different players, so they can go around and they can use um, their tool sets to increase or decrease that stabilization time, as it were, or make the point worth more or less value. And so as you as a player are going to take over that objective, you'll notice that those lights will flash for whatever that stabilization time is. And as they're flashing, lights will turn solid in the color of your team, one at a time, as that time is reduced. And once they are all solid, that's when your team owns that objective, and you will start earning points as a team for that objective. And that's also reflected. You get more information from the web application, where you can see, who has it specifically, the team, and you can see the stabilization time, and things of that nature. But as a player on the field, the only thing you really need to have with you is your chain code card, so that you can just tap and interact, and then you just move on. You don't need to sort of stand there and monitor the box or do anything else. You just give it that quick interaction, and continue to be involved in whatever mission that you're on, or protecting the area, or in pursuit of whatever target or objective that you're going after. So we really try to keep most interactions down to a simple tap.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if you're doing things like respawning, there will be some lights that actually charge up on the box, and it's kind of a teal color. And we make you charge those lights because we want to ensure that we're not inadvertently making players dead in the system that shouldn't be, because we don't want an accidental tap to um, and that result in a dead player. So we make you hold it for a brief second, just to show intent that you intended to do that action, because dead players in the system will be blocked from interacting with points until they've properly revived. Um, there's a few others that are relatively straightforward, but and they're all kind of tap to interact. But what Mando has done is really what we've done in the last, I guess, maybe 6 months or so, is we've rolled out what I call like prop enhancers. And so they're tags that you can put on various props. And the first one that we did was actually for the detonators for a Galactic Civil War event, and that was used in was it Rhaegar maybe? But it was used in one of the Galactic Civil War events before we actually rolled it out live to anybody else, to much success. And basically, what that lets you do is you can, regardless of the mode of the box, and you can attach these tags to any prop that exists on the field. And so for Galactic Civil War, that's great, because you guys have a bunch of fantastic props that are way beyond
Yeah.
anything that I could produce. And so it lets me enable your props, or you enable your props to do the things that you want and interact with skirmish in the way that is functional for your game. And so what he's made is he's made props for the detonators, so you can take an actual like your a live detonator in, and you can detonate targets regardless of what that box is there to do, whether it was a respawn point or an objective, or a collection point, or otherwise. You could use that detonator present it to that box and it'll detonate the entire point, and that would show up on the live map as well. And I mentioned earlier he has this kind of the scoundrel actions, or the like the engineer actions, where they can make objectives worth more value or less value, or can increase or decrease the stabilization time. And then we also are able to attach these same tags to loot items so that you can recover, um, high value objects from the field and bring them to a location of your choosing, and you can recover points and value that way. So those are some of the ways that you might interact. It gets very detailed, but I want to kind of kind of roll back to the beginning and say, for most players, the way that you're going to interact is simply take your chain code card and just tap it to one of our terminals, and you'll be it'll respond to you with a beep and some amount of flashing of lights that would be in response to your action, and you just need that quick tap and that response. And that response is typically in the form of, if it's an objective, lights that are in the color of your team, or if you've accomplished something like a task. Typically just know that green is good and red is bad, so you're looking for some kind of affirmative response, to let you know that you've accomplished what you're going out for in the affirmative. Or if it's red, it's usually denying you for some reason. And there's a myriad of reasons that could cause that response. But maybe now is not the time to labor those, because those could take me an hour.
Right.
Just know that green is good, red is bad, and otherwise just tap. It's
Right.
pretty straightforward.
And it's I think that GCW and Skirmish really were a perfect pairing because the system has a lot more depth than just boxes in a field that are capture points. There's a lot of fun things that
Mm-hmm.
we can and do with it. And I could sit here all day and recount stories, but I don't want to waste all our time. But I will briefly say that, like the props you mentioned, the prop chips, one of our
Hmm.
members and founders, Ben Carver, made some very cool debt charges that had that little
Hmm.
skirmish up on the bottom. I got to handle one, and it's a next level to be able to have a debt charge in your hands, and you have to go take it to a physical location and place it and get that physical beep response to it. Takes any objective and really elevates it, and that was just so cool. uh
Yeah, I really love that we were able to, with that mechanism, really make the gameplay fully player driven.
mhm.
And ideally, you know, Chris kind of lays out he sort of lays that foundation, builds the scenario, but then everything else just rolls with player interaction. So objectives detonating, values going up and down, points changing hands, all those types of things are really just fully player driven to the maximum extent possible. And so it's been really great to have that feature rolled out. And there's going to be a few expansions on that as we go forward. So yeah, that was a lot of, I really appreciate the, Galactic Civil War working with us to get that out. And then, all the feedback that we get.
Right on. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm really looking forward to those expansions. Now, Chris, let's talk about, what I asked earlier. What is a Battlefront event? How does it differ from a role play event? And what does it have to offer for some of our more role play focused players?
Great questions. So let's start with, what is a Battlefront event? A Battlefront event is a combat focused Galactic Civil War event. And what I mean by that is your primary focus there during the event is to complete your combat mission. The main missions may change from round to round, but primarily you will be focused on combat. It is a great way for you to field test a kit. It is a great way for you to work on tactical maneuvers with your squad mates. It is a great way to shoot stormtroopers or rebel scum, because the field that we're going for is directly derivative from the Battlefront events. Right, you get dropped into the Hoth trenches and you're just shooting the advancing force, or you're the advancing force pushing back these defenders. We wanted to have something that was high impact, fast speed, but also played with all of our combat rules, our upgrade rules, and just fit well within what we were building in Galactic Civil War. It's also an amazing stepstone for us to be able to test out rule changes or potential rule changes at these events, because you're really stress testing either class skills or class abilities or maybe resilient changes in a way that you can see its direct impact in a combat heavy scenario right away. And you have the ability to pivot or change that each iteration, each round, until you find something that you really, really love and the players really, really like. When we lay out a Battlefront event versus a story LARP event, I would rank it as a Battlefront is combat first, costuming second, and third is your role playing aspect. And then at a story LARP event, it is your LARPing first, right? Your role play is first, your costuming is second, and then your third is your combat. You're not as focused on that aspect of the game. So when you're comparing the two, well, what kind of role play opportunities might you have? Well, each round, if your team has won, you'll be given an additional bonus role play mission that may have various arcs to it in order to complete it. But only the winning team of the Battlefront event will be able to dive into that side of that role play mission. There's also role playing available in between rounds, because the way we do Battlefront events is it's 2-hour round, and it may be completed before that 2 hours now that we have the dynamic system, because certain objectives might be completed and the attacking team or whichever team might be able to win that round in an hour instead of taking 2 hours, which gives you a little bit more time in between rounds to buy your upgrades, strategize with your team, your squad, your commanders, and it also gives you time to, of course, role play. You could go, gamble in the cantina, play a round of cards, a round of sabak or pazak, if you so choose. Other things can unfold there, because there will be a cast of NPCs as well that may have some non-combat related quests that you can complete.
Right, right on. Because I think any of our viewers that might have caught our episode 3 on roleplay, we had both Liana and Recklin on, and they both confirmed that they feel they get a lot of roleplay at these Battlefront events in between these rounds, because it's provides a great opportunity to kind of let your guard down. You don't got to worry about shooting someone or being shot, so it gives you that opportunity just to see that cool NPC in the corner, just go walk up and talk to him. If it goes well, you might get a cool quest or a cool reward or just some neat intel. If it doesn't go so well, oh well, you shrug your shoulders, walk away, and in 30 minutes you're back on the field blasting the enemy team. So I'd say it has a lot to offer for that role play individual. Now I do want to harken back to what you mentioned, and that's rule changes. I think we've already announced on the Discord most of the things we're doing, but I really want to dive in and give a full in-depth look into them. The first being the resilient update. I know a lot of people had a lot of questions about that. I'm wondering if we can address some of those here.
We can. You
Well,
got any of the questions right in front of you, or should we just kind of dive into the thought behind some of the resilient changes?
yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. Let's really get into that, kind of state again for everyone what that resilient change is, and kind of just cover it in a bit more detail.
Yeah, so essentially, we're breaking down the resilient changes. Uh, Originally, resilience was the ability for your character to take 3 consecutive hits before they were put into bleed out. Well, the resilient perk is now getting adjusted. It is going to be, again, we're going to use the word dynamic based off of what you're wearing. So somebody in a full Wookiee costume may take 7 consecutive hits to put into bleed out, versus somebody who is an alien who might be a Twi'lek with very very minimal costume that may only take 3 hits to get down. So we're kind of looking at that. We're looking at how much time and effort people are putting into their costumes in terms to make something really great and really cool. Resilience in its core was designed to give the people who are wearing something that really isn't good tactically or in a battlefield sense, a way to survive, right? You put on a Mando bucket, you're losing peripherals, you're losing mobility, you're losing range of motion. So being able to take a couple additional BB strikes before you go down could be very beneficial to anybody wearing these costumes. Because at the end of the day, we want to shoot stormtroopers. We want stormtroopers to have fun while they're out there. So we want to make sure that we're giving people with costumes the right rewards. And we found that in terms of Plastoid has played out pretty well, and it's a pretty powerful perk. But we wanted to adjust resilience a little bit more to give the people who put extra work into their costumes or have additional coverage something to show or a perk to show from that.
Right. And now we immediately have a question in the chat about what was the biggest driver for updating resilience, and what will be the overlap with plastoid armor, if any?
Really, you're never going to see an overlap with Plastoid. The only thing you have now is an Imperial perk, which allows Plastoid to gain a slight bit of resilience, either 2 or 3 BB strikes. Again, when we are looking at that, we're looking at kits that are absolutely atrocious to wear. So, say you have, yeah, that's a good point. An alien in Plastoid. The best way to describe that is if you have an alien who is wearing plastoid armor, the more you have exposed alienness, the lower amount of plastoid your character will have on, and vice versa. So if a character is showing a lot of alienness, they're not going to have as much armor on. So you're kind of trading back and forth based off of how much coverage or how much you're showing of alienness versus how much plastoid you have for coverage. So if you have a Wookiee that is encased in plastoid armor and only has his head showing out, they're not going to have as much resilience as a Wookiee that is just full fur showing, right? Because the goal is to have more of the alien showing. Having more of the alien showing is going to potentially give you more resilience, if it makes sense.
Right. So is it fair to say that the driving factor is not necessarily what the in-game character would hypothetically be, but more so how uncomfortable is it for the player and how much trouble do they actually go through to put that kit together?
Right. That's the biggest push behind all this is to reward players who have gone above and beyond with their costuming skills, and we are rewarding those players that we know those kits are horrible. I mean, droid costumes can be absolutely horrible. There's one in my profile pic back here, Betty, that can be horrible to wear. So we want to give them a little bit more than just here's 3 consecutive shots. It's the same as some guy who has, latex mask on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Right. So I think what a lot of people are really wanting to ask but not asking is, when it comes to actually assigning that level of resilience, is it going to be a hard set bar that where everyone's judged by, kind of like with plastoid where we have numbers of pieces, or are we doing this on a case by case? Because I believe you have to have a photo submitted now for aliens.
Right.
So
Yeah,
it's
you're
going to be
going to
case
have
by
to
case.
submit your kit for approval to get your resiliency level. So it's going to be a case by case. So get those kit photos in,
Right.
and really everybody needs to think about this as a I'm going to change what I'm going to wear to try to get the most out of it. If you're doing that to try to metagame this system, it's not going to work well for you.
Yeah.
What you really need to focus on is what is a kit that I really, really want to wear, and then submit that photo. And then we'll let you know how much you're going to get for it. Because I know that some people may change or may try to change what they're going to wear, but don't lean into it that much. Don't think about it that much. Pick something that you want to wear, a loadout you want to wear, the amount of armor you want to wear, and submit it. And then we'll let you know how much you're going to get out of it.
Yeah.
We'll have tools on our side to help judge it, but Galactic Civil War is not about min maxing as much as some people may want to try. It's about having fun.
Right. So if your goal is to simply get the most resilience and the most self revive possible, you may need to reflect on that goal. But I think we fully covered that question. Brandon, real quick, the comment in chat: skirmish juggernaut technology. Do we not want to talk on that? Because if we don't, we could skip it.
We can maybe. I'm behind. How about that? There's it's coming along.
Mhm.
Um, I showed Chris this a while ago, and this is just my prototype, but this is the hit detection. So it should, you'll see the little green lights kind of go around the back as I thump this, and so it works. I've got that sort of running. What I need to do now is just connect it to the skirmish system on the back end, so I
Mhm.
can do all the normal controls over kind of wireless and internet and integrate it with the system. So we're not far away, but it's going to take a little bit of time. And I appreciate the push. Mando's been drilling me pretty hard on that as well, and I do want to get it out there when I can get to
Right.
it.
I think
Um,
I think we're all just
I
really
did want to
excited.
I did want to yeah, I think it's just it's a fantastic use of the system. It'd really be great for me to have it as an offering as part of the system, and I know that you guys would really make good use of it. So
Yeah.
I it is on my to-do list, and it's high up there. Um, I did want to plug real quick though, because you guys are talking about the role play
Mhm.
aspect of Galactic Civil War, and I just wanted to first commend you all on incentivizing a real just really leaning into that role play part of the game, because I think it's one, it's just really fun, and two, I mean this sincerely. I've been to a lot of events, and I've seen a lot of events. I've been exposed based on what I do to various types of games and gameplay, and I've never been to one where everybody genuinely walked off the field as happy as they did at Bolivar. That was the one I was at in person,
Mhm.
and I was just really impressed by how everybody genuinely had a good time. And I attribute that personally to the role play part of the game, where everything that happens is just really part of the role playing part of the game, and it's really not about winning or losing, etc. You're in this role play scenario that's been it's ongoing. There's a really immersive storyline behind it, and everybody can get behind that as well. And so when dying is, I think Chris said this in the rule briefing, but when dying is part of the game, it becomes part of the fun. Then really,
Very true. Very
there's no
true.
issue. It really, yeah, the number one problem that airsoft has in general is this: how do you how do you enforce or encourage people to call their hits in a reliable manner, so that, I mean, that just to that is the number one problem, is hit calling or various versions of that, right?
Mhm.
Otherwise known as kind of cheating, right? And the way you do it is make dying part of the game and part of the fun. And the way that you guys have done that is really leaning into the role play. And not only does it make the the Star Wars sort of theme of this more fun and exciting, but it just really helps everybody have a good time. And so I appreciate you guys really leaning into that and encouraging others through perks, etc. As part of the gameplay.
Thank you. I think we all really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Yeah, our
Mhm.
community and their willingness to engage with the things at the events and the things we try has always been our greatest asset. And you know, I
Mhm.
I didn't realize until I became an admin very recently just how hard that all these guys are working to put on this event that's 2 weekends out of the year. It's a year-round experience. So the work that goes into it, I think, is rewarded in that community. But so true in that when 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 dying is part of the game, it's part of the fun. And I think that's just like the best saying ever. And it might take a new player a minute to grasp that concept that, we don't necessarily just call hit and pull out a dead rag. Some of us might, actually really play that out and have fun with it. But once you've seen one person do it, and then you see two people do it, and then three people do it, and then it really elevates that experience. So well said, and thank you very much. Uh,
Yeah,
Chris,
I think that, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I
no,
think
good.
that people really especially with this health perk where you can get hit multiple times before. I mean, they really just lean into it and they know that, hey, I've got X amount of hits, and yeah, I see it's just a very I'm just impressed with how it kind of elevates the integrity and the honor in the sport. And I just one more plug before we jump off of
Yeah.
this topic was, so I was at the recent Palooza in Houston, and so kudos to your team that was down there for
Yeah.
that. And as soon as I walked in, the first person that greeted me was one of the Imperial Guardsmen that was fully in character,
Nice.
and
Nice.
just in his, it gave me the whole. I can't repeat exactly what he said because I don't remember exactly how he did it, but I just remember it being fully in character, exactly out, what you would expect out of an Imperial Guard, and he, also as part of that, kind of invited me out to his. To stop by their booth, which of course I did. But and then as you go over to the booth, of course everybody's still in character, and I just thought it was great. And so I always encourage. I love that one, Kurt at High Ground gives you all the exposure there because I think it's a high traffic um, airsoft event, and I know that people appreciate it, and I know that you guys are expanding your presence in the Texas area, so I think that's great as well. But yeah, just not only were you guys in character at the Boulevard event and all of your events, other than that, but also even in this um, at this Palooza, so it was really great.
Right. Thank you. That's all credit to our Texas team, Mark, Dax, and a couple others that were down there. They did phenomenal. I was watching that live stream the whole time, so I didn't even realize how well they did until now, I guess. So that's great to hear. But I know Texas has
Mhm.
been one of our like hotbeds of player growth. I think we had numerous players joining the Discord from that event alone. So you know, I think the next Texas event is looking great. That'll be Planetary Garrison Rhaegor, which will be, I believe, 2 weeks after Battlefront Mauston. So I'm sure we'll be doing another teaser episode for that event here soon. But pivoting back on topic a little bit, Chris, there's some more rules besides resilience that have changed and are being updated. The next one being the recon changes and changes to gear restrictions. Um, I'll take full responsibility that one of the recon changes was all my doing. I was the mind. So if you're someone upset about the fact that night visions and thermals are now locked to the recon class, you can be mad at me. That was my doing. The intent was to buff one of the least popular classes and make it more than just the class with the sniper rifle. It is now the reconnaissance class. It is the class that it really leans more into that scout play style, especially with the new stealth elimination rule set that, you were the mind behind, Chris. So I'm sure we can talk on that and clarify what it is and what it isn't. Because first off, I think it is not melee. We're not introducing melee kills. This is something similar, but not the same. So this is not a slippery slope into carrying axes and lightsabers. I think we should state that first and foremost. But
Right. Yeah,
you know,
we may cross that road at some point, but we're not there. That bridge has not even been built yet for us. One of the big things, and I'll just talk a little bit about melee, just because I know that there may be a lot of people that have questions about why we don't do it. Well, we are a event series that takes place in multiple states that has multiple different field rules on what you can and cannot do. A lot of issues have came up at fields where melee is a thing.
mhm.
We are very lucky to be able to do at least what we're doing, where we have the BACTA system and we have the elimination system where you can eliminate someone within bleed out. Um, the the slippery slope comes from melee and hitting somebody's eye pro off and this and that, and people getting too heated. Um, and one of my biggest things is the tickly melee weapons when two people are fighting each other. Just kind of ruins some of the aesthetic. You see it sometimes in like lightsaber competitions and all that, and we're always about being the everyday guy, and everyday guy has a blaster at his side, and that's how he deals with problems. So that's the way we've been looking at it. We did want to put something into the game that gave the recon class an edge. So they get the ability to stealthily eliminate a player that is alive. So this is a very this has gone against a lot of our gut feelings for a while. But when you're adding new things to a game, sometimes it isn't to add something that everybody can do, as it is add something that someone can do. So we have the operative and the scoundrel class that has the ability to slice into terminals, slice into skirmish boxes, and be able to change their congestion time up or down. We wanted the recon class to have a way to get behind it, quote unquote, get behind enemy lines and eliminate somebody without making any noise. So it's a shoulder tap and saying stealth elimination, and that person knows after 5 seconds that they've been eliminated from play.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of danger in doing this because you're kind of exposing yourself. You can't move the player around while this is happening. You're not miming that you have them by the neck or anything. No, it's a very gentle and a verbal acknowledgement that this is happening. And it has to be done in a way that the player that you're doing it to didn't know you were there. So you can't come up to them, have a conversation with them, go behind them, and then stealthily eliminate them. That's not how this is going to work. So I think there are 1,000 times a player might have had a situation to do this on the battlefield, but they didn't have the opportunity to. Well, now the opportunity is there for the recon class.
Yeah. So it's one more thing making that class more appealing to a wider variety of players, because now recon appeals to your scouts and now it appeals to your stealth ninjas. So it's a much
Yep.
more appealing choice. And I think it's worth clarifying that this stealth elimination is essentially the same as tapping someone out that's already downed. You know, as Chris said, you're not putting your arm around their neck, you're not pulling out something and stabbing them with it. You are stealth elimination, tap out. And totally unaware means you're not jumping around. No hiding in corners and then jumping out as they walk through. We're not doing. This is not
Gotcha.
yeah. This is not a haunted house. It is what the intent is, that you sneak up on that guard posted on the hill who has no idea you're there. The idea is you're hiding behind a tree as that patrol walks by, and you stealth up behind one guy after another, and you've just stealthily eliminated a whole squad walking through the woods. That's the intent. The intent is not like Chris said, because I'll admit I was apprehensive about it at first, because my biggest concern was someone's going to walk up to me, oh, I'm friendly, I'm friendly, I'm friendly, have a conversation, and then go, okay, yeah, and the second I turn, they're going to go stealth elimination. But that's not it. That's not how it works. Essentially, ask yourself in your head, if I were to suddenly reach for this guy's throat, would he put up a fight meaningfully? And if the answer is yes, then that's not an opportunity to stealth eliminate somebody. But I think we've covered a lot of the ifs, ands, buts about that rule, and I'm really excited to see how it plays out at Battlefront Mauston. So I think that's a field with a lot of cover and a lot of woods. So I'm hoping somebody pulls one off and reports back on how it went, because I'm excited to hear about it. And I think that covers a lot of our rule changes. We did introduce the concept of the hero missions. However, I don't think we're going to have one ready in time for Mauston, but maybe for Rhaegor. So when we do our Rhaegor teaser, we'll cover that more in depth. And those hero missions kind of go hand in hand with that maybe potentially skirmish juggernaut system that we had touched on earlier. I think that's one of the big reasons we're all super excited for that.
Brandon, I blacked out for a little bit before when you were talking. I think you said you were going to confirm 100% that we will be battle testing this at Battlefront Mauston.
Yeah, you said it was ready now, right?
Mauston?
Yeah, you said it was ready now, right?
Yeah. Oof. I'm gonna do my best. But I will. Here's what I will guarantee: that before it's available to anybody else, it'll be battle tested at a Battlefront event.
Right on. Hey, art takes time. Real talk, we don't want to rush things. We know that something is cool, but as durable as what we're gonna need will take time. So I think when it's ready, and we are more than willing to test that out. A couple things in the chat I wanted to bring up. Now, I know you answered some questions in the chat. I wanted to just read them out loud for everyone that maybe isn't seeing that. Someone asked if you will personally be joining us for the next Battlefront game. At which point you said you would be joining us at the next 878 event. That is the Planetary Garrison Rhaegor event. So looking forward to having you there. I know I've been directly involved in a lot of the planning for that event, a lot of the missions. So now that I know for certain we'll have you in the skirmish boxes there, I can breathe a little easier and plan a little tighter. Someone also asked what was some good tips for new skirmish users and how to get the most out of it. To which you replied, creating a profile and registering your skirmish band that is included with your chain code card. Correct. And someone can create their profile before the event, which I would highly recommend doing so you're not sitting there in the blazing hot sun staring at your phone screen trying to create a profile.
Right, and it's important that you register the chip,
Yes.
your chain code card before the game,
Yes.
because if you do it afterwards, we won't retroactively, attribute any of those actions to your player account. So,
Mm-hmm.
so do that before the game. That way, and really, you could do it today if you know you're going to be there. Making an account is free. We don't gather a bunch of intrusive information. So, and once you get there, you can pair your chain code card, and 'cause I think Chris, you collect those at the end, so they may not have them at home, but anyway, when you get there, you would pair your chain code card, very simple, and then you're off to the races. And what's great about it is, you can make your persona in the skirmish system, and so that when you're doing things in the game, you'll see your name next to those various actions and get the credit for having um, performed various missions that Chris is going to give you, or taken various objectives, etc. So that's the number one way that a player can get the most out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, just have fun
Yeah.
and partake in all of the things that are offered, that take every opportunity to interact with the system, which is to another way of saying take every opportunity to get on these side missions, and really lean into the game that has been created by Chris and others.
Yeah. And I know winning isn't the goal, but having that leaderboard at the end that has your,
Mhm.
picture and name, your character name. If that mine's my character name and a picture of me and Kit, so it's really cool to see that and see how I did and see my stats and being that tied to my character. It's really it just
Mhm.
makes a lot of fun. So, but there's another question in chat, Chris, that I think if you could pull it up. I know they were asking about vehicles because someone has been actually putting the effort into making a vehicle, and they're asking if there's been any actual official prep work on how to handle them. And
Oh yeah, there's always
yeah,
conversations going on behind the doors, behind the screens. But the biggest thing is if you're in the sideline right now trying to figure out how you can get a vehicle ready for one of these events, the biggest thing is A, it's got to look like it's out of Star Wars, and B, you have to work very closely with the admin staff and the field to ensure that we're following all the precautions. And like I said before, when it comes to melee, same thing comes to vehicles. Each field we go to may have a different rule and it may get updated year from year. So if
yeah,
you are in the sidelines thinking right now, hey, I want a vehicle at Battlefront Mauston, reach out to any of the admin staff and we can start having that conversation. And as soon as we have a confirmation that a vehicle will be at an event, aka we have pictures of the vehicle and it looks good, and they've got their insurance all lined up and everything, that's when we'll put out the rules. But we don't want to just put rules on the website for something that doesn't exist yet.
yeah,
So, the one thing that I will say with that is it is one of the main reasons I'm pushing Brandon so hard on this hit detection system, so that we can have essentially hard or soft spots on vehicles or weak points on vehicles that can be targeted by small arms fire as another way to destroy or disable a vehicle. So that's why I'm pushing them so hard on
yeah,
some of this.
yeah. Which I think actually answers the second part of that question, which is, would the skirmish hit detection be used as a form of juggernaut for vehicles? So very true. I think it's something that you've said for as long as the event's been around is when someone makes the vehicle, you'll make the vehicle rules. and that same thing still
Right.
applies. One of our players acquired a golf cart. He's drawn up designs on how he's gonna make it look like the speeder trucks we see in Andor. And he's really putting effort into getting the maintenance and work done and the insurance, and that's great. And I fully have the faith and hope in him. But until the day, like you said, that we get those confirmation pictures, we see videos of it operating, and we see the insurance. I think on that day we'll sit down and make those rules. And I think we want to say that like we understand a lot of effort and money goes into vehicles and transporting them to an event. So I think I can assure anyone that any rules made would be fair, but also make it worthwhile to that vehicle crew that spent that time and money getting the vehicle and getting it out there. I know I've been to events where disabling a vehicle was the simplest process ever, and it made them like almost a non-asset. They were nothing, and at that point, it's why have them. So I think the skirmish system, the juggernaut hit detection, if that comes around and works, then I think that would be the great way to go. Putting it like having that weak point system put on the back of the speeder truck, like the exhaust. Light that up a good bit, and you've disabled that vehicle. So I think that'd be really cool to see. But enough hypotheticals. We're talking about Battlefront Mauston. I want to go into a play-by-play and into what one of these dynamic events or rounds will look like for the dynamic Battlefront. So, like, I know you have the missions laid out with their names. I'm wondering if you can take us through one of them and kind of give a sneak peek at what players can expect for one of these missions, what it's going to look like, as opposed to just, your average game of Conquest, capturing points.
Yeah, so I'll give the quick rundown of the names that we have so far
Mhm.
and kind of the sequence in which they'll happen. So in this scenario, let's look at a way. Let's say that the Imperials have won the first conquest mode. They're going to then go to the fallback game mode, which then puts the rebels on the defensive,
Mhm.
and the Imperials attacking the defenders line, command post after command post, until they get to the final command post that the rebels would have to hold. Um, so fallback, like the name it is given, defenders will pre-deploy on the map. So that means that they're going to be in place before the attackers get onto the field, which then gives them a way to get into place and hold down a position and get ready for the attacker in the attacker wave. But once the attackers take that post and push those defenders out, because the defenders will have their respawn way back at their normal respawn spot. So they have a lot further to go to get into defensive position after they've been eliminated. And at the beginning of the game, the attackers are going to have a lot shorter space between their main respawn and that first objective. So potentially, they're going to be overwhelming this first objective relatively quickly just because of their ability to spawn so far. Spawn so closely to where they're attacking. They're going to keep taking these posts and being able to spawn at these command posts. And once that command post is captured, it will not be able to get recaptured by the defenders. So the defenders are constantly, again, the name of the mode is fallback, falling back on the map until they get to their final defense point, which still will not be relatively close to the base. It will be closer, but it won't be super close to them. So the attackers are still going to gain momentum by taking these command posts. The next mode after that, if the Emperor wins that mode, the Imperials win that mode, is sabotage. The enemy stronghold is protected by 8 shield generators, defenders. They may select 2 squads to pre-deploy on the map. Both teams respawn at their main bases, and 4 command posts on the map can be captured. Command posts are areas that you can also respawn at. Once captured, your faction may respawn at those locations. So the attackers have to go and destroy 8 different points on the map by arming a bomb and that bomb exploding. So it's a little bit different dynamic because the attackers could be attacking 8 different points at the same time, and the defenders will either have to say, hey, let's try to defend everything or be reactive to everything, or they're going to dig their heels in certain locations. So after a sabotage mode, there are a few more modes that will exist, and I don't want to get too far into this,
Yeah.
but
Don't want to spoil everything.
there are things. Spoil it all. Spoil the whole thing. But essentially, if the Empire fails in that sabotage mode, it's going to flip back to a fallback game where the rebels are now pushing the Imperials. So the pendulum will swing back and forth on how the mode is designed until they start advancing on their side of the board. So it's a little bit of a pendulum gameplay where the other dynamic added into this is these bonus rounds. So as you win, your team is also given an additional bonus round where it might be hold an Imperial research base. But every time you get one of these bonus missions, if you fail that bonus mission, it's going to give the other enemy team a bonus of sorts, whether it's a dark trooper or additional command posts that they can utilize, or maybe bombing runs or orbital strikes that can destroy skirmish points from orbit. Basically, we think of this as Mario Kart balancing. So the more you win, if you're not also completing these additional missions on top of that, the enemy team is going to start getting their blue turtle shells. They're going to start getting their things that are going to aid them in winning further matches. So it's going to make you stop, slow down to try to complete these different missions, all while dividing your own assets in order to do it. So the game becomes harder the more you win.
Right. Yeah, we've got that lot of stuff in play to stop that snowball effect that can often happen with games like this. But do we want to reveal or give a sneak preview of what some of these bonus missions might entail?
We're going to leave that as classified.
Okay, right on. Well, it sounds like we're going to have a lot of really cool stuff involving pre-deployments, dynamic respawns, and just a lot of cool force multipliers for the losing team to keep things balanced. So, I think this dynamic Battlefront system we've got going on, I'm really excited for it, and I think everyone should be too. I did want to get into some more Mauston stuff, some previews and
Did
sneak
you say
peeks.
something about zombies?
I didn't say anything about zombies. I don't know.
Oh,
These are unfounded rumors. Sir, these are unfounded rumors.
did somebody
This,
say something about
I
zombies?
don't know. This is,
Did
sir.
somebody say
Listen, anything you
that
might
there's
have
going to be?
heard or been told is unfounded rumors. It is hearsay. Mauston is a totally safe and secure location. Any research going on underground was all above board and was all certified, and that's long in the past. There's nothing to be concerned about. There is no contamination. There are no zombies in Battlefront Mauston. Don't you worry about that.
Especially during the night game, right?
Yeah, especially during the night game. The night game will be a standard, boring team deathmatch. Nothing to worry about. Imperials versus Rebels, the same old, same old. I wouldn't even stress it. Just bring your tracers. If you don't have one, get one. But a lot of other cool
Can
stuff.
you guys see me? Can you see me winking under the helmet? Can you see that?
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah,
Yeah, there's no
yeah.
zombies. Wink.
No zombies whatsoever. No special
Not at all.
rules. No special infected. That doesn't exist. That's not real. Don't worry about it.
Wink.
Wink,
Wink.
wink, wink. Other cool stuff. I could not get one of the Cantina members, employees, workers on, but they wanted to let you guys know that the in between rounds, the Cantina will have lots of in-universe games to look forward to, as well as special role play events. And as always, there will be snacks and refreshments, and Uba, our resident Ewok, will be serving breakfast, and players will have the opportunity to help out and volunteer with Cantina work for in game credits. As well, Mauston, in its lore, is becoming quite the hotbed for criminal activity, and a gang war is brewing. Players will have the opportunity to get a sneak peek and a small taste of that at Battlefront Mauston through the presence of Pike and other criminal syndicate NPCs that will have special missions for players to partake for special hidden rewards. All of this is coming up probably for the first time at Battlefront Mauston. I think this event is going to be a lot of firsts for us. A lot of cool new stuff we're really excited about. A lot of new rules we're beta testing. So it's looking really good. Um, Sorry, a bit of a brain fart, but back on topic. Something cool we're doing with the skirmish system that I don't think we're doing at this event, but I know we will be at the next roleplay event is we're looking at getting a skirmish box for Imperial officers to carry around with the goal of scanning people's chain codes to check chain codes to check their allegiance. And I think that's just a really cool thing we're doing. And I'm kind of wondering how's the progress on that going? Are we able to get those boxes for these players to carry around?
You you guys did that at Rigor, is that right?
Yeah, we did something similar, but I think we're looking at getting a couple. And I
Hmm.
think what we really want to do is figure out a way to have an exterior case to put around them to make them look like a swarzy forget the name of it, but it's the thing in Star Wars where like the data entry access points
Hmm.
are. So I think something we're looking at
Oh,
doing
excellent.
is
Brandon, what's a Pit Boy?
Pit Boy.
Oh,
A whole different
that's
event.
another great idea that has been backburnered.
Hmm.
The Juggernaut is taking priority, but
Right, but it sounds like a similar
yeah,
process. Just more cool stuff we're doing with
yeah,
skirmish.
yeah.
So
Is
Yeah,
it
the
so?
what you're
Do,
describing, we utilize that at the Imperial Super Commandos did chain code checks with
really
skirmish box in hand.
awesome.
So it'll be just us cooking up a version of that that will be utilized as that instead of just carrying a skirmish box around.
Mhm.
It'll either be a nice little briefcase with a nice Imperial sigil on it, all that kind of stuff. Um, we had some really good success utilizing that, turning what would have been in like mundane task into something very fun. We had like a checkpoint that we had set up down by the Mandalorian and Battle or Bounty Hunters Guild, and it basically took one of the main roads out of play, where the Imperials there were stopping anybody that was trying to, go past, and we'd had to do chain code checks on anybody that was moving through. So we take this task that is, hold this objective to, okay, hold this objective, but make sure the citizens of the empire are still able to go about, their business day to day. So you build this sense of tension as you get groups of players who are like wanting to get through a checkpoint, but now they can't, and now they're starting to, that an attack is imminent soon on this outpost.
Mhm.
But you kind of put yourself in this situation where you're like, I'm just trying to do my job, but at the same time, your death is coming soon. So it was probably one of my favorite moments during the last LARP event is utilizing that box to do something so mundane as just like checking people's chain codes.
Oh yeah.
And the funnest thing about that, in my opinion, was even when people had nothing to hide, they were still reluctant to turn over their chain code to the Empire for them to run it because they didn't know what we're looking for, if it was just like an RP opportunity, but it would just legitimately pops up whatever faction they are. So if they're a rebel who is undercover, or if they're a hut who is doing some shady stuff, their record could pop up showing, yep, this guy's a hut, or this guy's has Pike affiliation, or this guy is a known member of the Rebel Alliance. Is what's going to happen then, huh?
Right. Yeah.
Husky,
Hey,
huh?
I never got stopped up in any checkpoints. Every good rebel avoids main roads. That's all I'm gonna say on that.
Right.
I definitely was not hiding in the brush when I saw a squad of super commandos. I was doing important recon work. I was not cowering, not at all. But that's something that I think really reflects skirmish as a whole. Is it can take mundane tasks in a role play environment and make it a lot more interesting. On our side of that, it was going on patrols and making sure we still maintained area security on our secret uplink stations where we had select skirmish boxes that were rebel uplinks that we had to protect, and they had to stay under rebel control at all times. So we got to send guys on patrols to check these physical locations and make sure they were still showing green. They hadn't been taken offline by the Empire. So that was a really cool, thing we get to do with the skirmish system. But one more thing I wanted to touch on with the Battlefront events is, and one of their differences to our mainline LARPs is with the unaffiliated player base. Now, at our mainline LARPs, the unaffiliated make up a sizable portion of the player base. So, Chris, what do we do with them at Battlefronts? What's the experience like for the unaffiliated player that maybe still doesn't want to create a rebel or imperial character?
Yeah, they are used as balancing forces for either team. So they're issued a green armband for the rebels, and they're issued a white armband for the Imperials, and they will fight alongside that regiment during whether they're considered mercenaries or ruffians or maybe a bounty hunter that is formed alliance with that team for that round, and each round we will rebalance. One of the things that we will notice with the dynamic events is some of the dynamic events may give more of the unaffiliated to the team that has been losing. So the number of players on the defending team might increase if the rebels keep losing round after round after round. They will start gaining and bolstering some of the unaffiliated forces, which then again will make it harder for the attacking team to win. So again, we want to make a space that is as fun for everybody as possible. And even when you're the team that is winning all the time, a lot of times it doesn't get fun to do that because you have players walking off field for the defending team or the opposite team. They start hemorrhaging players. Then you get out there and you're the attacking team and you got nobody to fight. We never want that scenario to play out at any of our events. And with the dynamic Battlefront and the dynamic rounds, you're going to see incentives for and reasons for your team to be there and keep playing because they're going to start getting some really cool bonuses and perks, whether it is more mercenaries on your team or whatever it is.
Right on. And I know we probably should clarify that for our unaffiliateds and our mercenaries, that because this is not a roleplay event, like you said earlier, combat is number one. When you are assigned to a team, you're assigned there for balancing purposes. And so while the character you'd like to play might not normally support that faction, Battlefront events are non-canon to the greater GCW story. What the things you do and say aren't a reflection of the greater event series. So you do need to stay on that faction. You cannot be taking your armband off. Now there's still plenty of opportunity to roleplay, and it could even present a very cool, unique challenge for you and your character as to, why would I be fighting for this faction I don't support? Was it the money? Were you pressed into service? Just something along those lines to be considered. And if that idea is still very unappealing, well, then might I say now is a great opportunity to create a new character for Battlefront events. That's something that makes the Battlefront events so great, is it is, as Chris said much earlier, an opportunity to try out a new character, try something new. So they're really great for numerous reasons. And so I wanted to ask Brandon, you as well. I know you mentioned that you were going to the next 878 event. I want to know, are you coming in a player capacity, or are we going to see you in a Star Wars costume out there blasting away at people?
I would love to come in a player capacity. I can't promise that I'm going to make that happen yet. Um, but I do want to just come out and partake in general because it is a good time. I also I have some childhood friends that I grew up with from grade school through high school and so on, that and best men in my wedding that live in the Dallas Fort Worth area. So it's a good opportunity to do all of the above. And if I can coax them into getting into it with me, I think that would certainly increase my chances of showing up in some kind of player costume.
Right. Well, we always have tons of loaner kit, so we can definitely help you achieve that. We got another question in chat. Will the skirmish system be able to separate characters without getting a new chain code? So I'm assuming like if you come to the event in a new costume as a new character, and I think it does something like that because when you start the event, you scan into your team, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. So I think we've.
Um,
You were gonna say?
yeah, just so I make sure I understand the question, Gabby. So you might have to rephrase it, but I'll answer it this way. A single player can have multiple chain code cards as the system would see it. You should only register one per game, but it's possible for you to have more than one attached to you as a player. If you want to ensure that a player is what that player does is only attributed to a specific character, you would need to make separate profiles for those different
Mm.
characters and register the bands or the chain code card to that another character. So one thing you could do if you want just one chain code card that you use for each character, however, is you could when you pair your chain code card with one profile, it will remove it from another. So if you don't want to have multiple chain code cards, you could before the game register that chain code card to that character on a specific profile. And then the next game, make sure you register it to the new character so that it's not attributing credit to the old character. So we don't limit the number of profiles you can have, which you might use as character profiles. And if you want to use that same chain code, you just need to make sure that you register it or pair it with each character prior to that event, and it will reflect those actions to that character only, and you can seamlessly swap it back and forth if you'd like. Um, the only restriction we have on player accounts is that the email is unique and that the call sign is unique. Otherwise, you can have as many accounts as you like.
Gabby's saying that pretty much answers it. And then with immediate follow-up question on the hero missions, um, would hero permadeath mean you are required to register a new profile for skirmish on your chain code?
No.
There you go, short and concise.
You may want to change your character
Yeah.
on skirmish, or change your character name on skirmish, or your call sign on skirmish, but a permadeath won't affect that at all. As of right now, your upgrades are not necessarily linked to your skirmish system or to the skirmish system. It is housed on a different document and also on the physical cards that are given out.
Right on. Yeah, I think that is a good answer because I know creating profiles, as you said, Brandon, is free, and I can attest that it's pretty easy and quick to do because I did it the first event and standing there in line to start the event. So that is probably not the best time to do it, but it is quick and easy and free. I think we're going to go ahead and start moving into any closing remarks and wrapping things up. If you guys have anything else you want to cover, bring up, plug, or shout out, now is the time to do so. And going once, going twice. All
Is,
right.
is that to us as well, or are we looking to the audience for those?
Oh, that was to you guys, but to the audience as well.
Oh,
If
oh,
you have any
oh,
questions, anything you want to ask, please do so. We're going to give it another couple minutes for you guys to get that in, but otherwise, Chris, any closing remarks? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to cover?
I'll just say Battlefront events are really, really important for Galactic Civil War. If you're on the fence about going it because you think you're only going to enjoy a LARP event as your first event, I would please tell you to reconsider that. It is a great way for you to get a really good grasp on the core combat rule set very, very quickly. And it's also a way to get involved in the community and meet people, face
Oh,
to face,
yeah.
start
Okay.
putting names to Discord faces to Discord names, and it's another great way for you to earn credits. It
Yeah.
is one of the only real reliable way to earn credits in Galactic Civil War, especially for unaffiliated players who have a hard time earning credits. Um, Really, the credits are incentivized on who is winning each round. You still get paid credits for participating in a round, but it is also the only way for sure that you could know that you can safely go get an upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our story LARP events, we've had some feedback on, hey, I didn't like this because when I went to town, I kept getting killed by, people in the shadows or, whatever it was. I was like, well, that's the story LARP. Take more people with you next time you want to go spend your credits in town. Battlefront events are the only real safe way to guarantee that you will be able to get your credits all the way to the upgrade station and get the upgrade you want at the end of the round or in between rounds. Because you have that 2 hour or 1 hour gap in between rounds where you can go spend your upgrades. Kind of like when you go back to home screen during a video game where you can go, choose your loadout, choose your picture, choose your upgrade that you want to buy with the credits you've earned. It's really that feel and that vibe that we go for with Battlefront events. So if you're on the fence, get off the fence and get on
Yeah.
the idea of getting into the Battlefront series because it really is a fun way to participate and a fun way to help Galactic Civil War grow.
Right. I have never regretted going to one. Um, Brandon, any closing remarks for us?
I just want to say again that I'm really humbled that Galactic Civil War has taken Skirmish, we'll say, under their wing and really grown with us. And I really appreciate all the feedback and sort of the pressure to continue to advance what we can offer. And I think that that really goes to the players as well. So if you're out there watching and you have a request or a question or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it might be, I love to hear that kind of feedback. Most of the features that exist in the system beyond some of the core stuff like objective control are through recommendations from players or event promoters. So anything we can do to try to make things easier, or if you have feature requests, I'd love to hear that stuff. Sometimes those feature requests can be as easy as an afternoon, and those just kind of go in immediately. Others take longer, like the Juggernaut thing that we've been talking about. But either way, I like to keep pushing and integrating those types of things and let it be kind of an organic development through player recommendations. And then just the last plug on using the system, make a profile, it's free.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're interacting on the field, the two most important things to remember are, well, one is probably more lengthy because you've got to remember all of the rule sets and things like that that Chris puts out, but really pay attention to the rules, the scenarios, etc. Kind of study that so you understand what is going on in the game and where you need to be and where you need to go. And then beyond that, when it comes time to interact with a skirmish box, remember to just tap and know that everything else is being handled behind the scenes. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I appreciate you guys again for having me on, and love being a part of Galactic Civil War.
All right, thank you. I think it's fair to say that the event would not be the same without Skirmish. But just real quick, I wanted to ask if anyone listening, any field owners or local refs at any fields wanted to contact and reach out about getting Skirmish at their local field, how would they go about doing that? Where can they reach you?
And they can on the website there's a contact me section and or contact us section, and you can click on that. You can submit a very simple um, form, which is your email, a quick note to us that'll go essentially directly to me. Also, you can reach us at skirmesh.net@gmail.com, or I think our handle on Instagram is just at skirmesh, so or at skirmish airsoft. So any of those are great ways to get a hold of me, and yeah, I'd love to talk to you if you're interested.
Right on. Well, all right. I think that about does it. Chris, thank you so much. Brandon, thank you so much. Great having both of you on here. Chris, you'll be returning soon. I can't say what date specifically yet for the GCW Founders episode that I know we mentioned briefly last week. So looking forward to having you there. But I'm going to get into thanking our Patreon supporters. Thank you to all of those who have donated to the DCW Patreon, that being Dak Ferrix, Dax Theron, aka Not Zeb Corrales, Lieutenant Odo Tadano, our blue leader, Ambrose Stargazer, Crix Harond, Lieutenant Kian Shea, Lieutenant Raptus, our gold leader. Thank you to those individuals who have supported the Galactic Civil War Patreon. Your money does not go to the podcast. It does not go to me. It goes to the Galactic Civil War coffers and to helping expand the events and make them even better. So again, thank you to those individuals. Thank you to all our listeners. Thank you to all our event attenders. And thank you for being you. Have a good night, and I'll see you next time.